Hi, everyone. I'm Leanora Minai, editor for Working at Duke and Executive Director of Communications in the Office of Communication Services. Thanks for joining us today. Today, we're going to talk with John Noonan, Vice President for Facilities Management, and Matthew Stiegel, Director of the Occupational and Environmental Safety Office at Duke. We're going to go over an inside look of the reopening of buildings and facilities on campus. To help our viewers understand the scope of facilities' role in recent weeks and going forward, can you please offer a big picture overview of how facilities is preparing university buildings for reopening?
Sure, thanks, Leonora. First, I'd like to say that during these difficult times, I think it's very fortunate that I have the ability to work at Duke, and I know this is certainly true across my department. I heard many good things about how senior administration is teaching or treating the staff here at Duke. Certainly we're out in front as I talk to my peers across the Ivy League. Senior administration, as I said, has been instrumental and very supportive in this, and I think it's also key that Duke happens to have a major medical center right on campus with us that can provide just great insight for us that are in the kind of operational world here at Duke. So it's just been amazing to watch everybody pull together to work on this very complex problem. So just to give you a sense for some context, and then I'll get to your question. When Duke went from a fully active campus to an almost vacant one in a relatively short period of time, the campus never closed. There were certain things that we did in facilities, for example, running utility plants. They never shut down. We never changed staffing schedules. So many aspects of what we do on a day-to-day basis did continue. However, we did go from about 550 staff to about 100 staff coming in each day. So it was a significant rotation put on the staff as we geared down. So now we're at the point where we need to gear back up for reopening. Clearly, the number one thing I think on everybody's mind is safety. So safety for our students, faculty, and staff. We want to make sure that we reopen the campus in a responsible and safe manner. So to that end, what we've done so far in facilities, one of the key things is to piggyback on the return to work guide that Kyle Cavanaugh and Paul Grantham and team have put together. So we developed a toolkit called Facilities Toolkit. So in that toolkit, kind of a high level guide for our staff, but certainly our customers here at Duke. Covers several areas within facilities. So one is covers some cleaning aspects for the buildings, building prep, and I'll get into some of this in a little bit of detail, utility system prep as well, a little bit on landscaping, talk about construction, as well as customer responsibilities. It also contains some frequently asked questions. So I encourage staff around campus to review the frequently asked questions. They are changing pretty frequently as things come up. And then there's also a 2-week walk-up to a building reopening. So some specifics about what we have been doing is really outfitting the building. So Matt and his team have come up with recommendations and guidance. One is to outfit them for hand sanitizer stations. So we're working on a list of approximately 2,000 hand sanitizer stations across the campus, installing those in major entrances and lobbies of buildings, at elevator stops, and in major areas such as lounges or major hallways. In terms of cleaning, we're also providing cleaning products to building occupants so that they can do some interim cleaning in between our housekeeping clean, say in a break room or a major lounge area. And then if we turn to the building, some of the key things within our buildings is flushing the water system. So this is really on 2 parts. We run utility system here at Duke. So we have to flush the water mains that are outside the buildings, whereas the buildings are connected to them. And then also inside the buildings, flushing the water systems as the buildings get slated to reopen. We're also setting the building control system. So if you recall that we throttled the campus down as we went into sort of an idle mode. So resetting the temperature and humidity schedules as the buildings become reoccupied is important. We did get an opportunity to save some energy, but as these buildings open back up, we'll put them back on a normal schedule. And then posting signage, we are posting, facilities has taken responsibility to post the elevators and the restroom signage around campus. A few other efforts that we have been working on. We're setting up a shop, a refill shop, as I call it, for hand sanitizer, so we can get that refilled around campus. There are also some supply chain issues, so we're trying to get ahead of that and take control ourselves. We've also been working with the COVID engineering lab. They've been helping us redesign bottle pumps, hand sanitizer stations, and also giving us insight as to how to refill some of these cartridges that we have in various dispenser types across campus. Lastly, working with Duke procurement very closely on critical supplies, so hand sanitizer, gloves, et cetera. So that's where we are at this point in time.
Thanks, John. Real quick before I move to Matt, I just want to let our viewers know that we're going to come back in a little bit more detail on the social distancing. And then, John, real quick, just if you could give us just maybe one, if you don't mind elaborating just a little bit more on what changes are being made in the cleaning and disinfecting of campus buildings and the high-touch surfaces to reduce the spread of coronavirus, just so people can get a little bit of an idea of what's happening on that front before we go to Matt.
Sure. So in the housekeeping cleaning world, one of the major changes is to clean and disinfect the high traffic, high touch points within the buildings with a higher frequency, is what I would say. So Matt and his team have put together a matrix for us to follow. So as buildings reopen, we are reassigning, retasking our housekeepers to go take care of these high traffic, high touch points. Examples are doorknobs at the major entrance, elevator buttons, maybe light switches, those types of things. We've always done basically a clean once a day, but this is to try to get there more than once a day, ideally 2 to 3 times a day in the high traffic areas. We've also purchased some high production disinfectant sprayers. We don't have them in hand yet, but that will also help us as more and more buildings open up. That will help us keep up with this goal.
Thanks, John. That's very helpful. Matt, there have been some questions about whether the virus can spread through a building's HVAC system. Is this something people should be concerned about when they return to the workplace? And can you tell us a little bit more about all that?
Sure. That's a great question, and one that we've worked with on facilities as we've ramped up our return to work process. And as we've seen since this pandemic started, the primary method for transmission of the virus is through droplets and mucous membrane contact with the virus, so this kind of thing. And this is why we've stressed universal masking, social distancing, and proper hand hygiene. That said, if a person is unmasked and sneezes or coughs, the currently available research has demonstrated that the droplet isn't entrained into the HVAC system or redistributed by the air handling unit, but settles within that environment. So given that, we're following industry and government guidance, and where applicable, we're doing 3 different things. We've increasing outdoor air concentration or contribution and ventilation rates, trying to increase filtration efficiency of the filters that are on the HVAC units and system themselves, and making sure that the building systems have been optimized to be as efficient as possible. So to summarize, the building HVAC systems are a very low risk method of transmission.
Thanks, Matt. I'm sure that's going to be a relief for people to hear. John, going back to you, in our environments, facilities and occupational folks, we can all be doing so much to improve our environment, but there's some responsibility from community members as well. What responsibilities do community members have to promote safety and health in our work areas?
Also a good question, Leanora. So as I said earlier, it's really going to take the entire village to kind of keep this under control as we populate the campus coming into the fall semester. Some of the things that certainly they could help with, each department and school does have a return to work coordinator that is in contact with us. So as buildings open, letting us know what they may need or what questions they may need to have answered would be very beneficial for starters. They will also be responsible to help post signs out of the sign toolkit around campus to promote distancing, et cetera. And one of the key things, and Matt has told me this several times, at the end of the day, it's really three things. Wash your hands, wear your mask, and keep your distance. So those are some of the things that they could do to help.
Thanks, John. That's super helpful. Turning back to you, Matt. So many of us have seen plexiglass out in the community as a physical barrier, especially in some places where you may be conducting a transaction at a retail store or a seafood market or something like that. Talk to us a little bit about, do you envision a similar shielding boundary on campus at reception desks or cashier desks or stations or other customer service areas or classrooms or wherever? Do you see that sort of plexiglass happening, or what role does it play?
Sure. So we explored the feasibility of installing those plexiglass barriers in those high traffic, potentially high touch areas that you mentioned, and worked through the risk assessment process, as well as evaluating a few pilot locations to see if they would be effective in that manner. And as a result of those extended discussions and evaluations, we determined that installing those plexiglass barriers offered minimal additional protection or reduction in risk beyond what is provided through I'll say it again, our required universal masking, social distancing, hand hygiene. The other thing that's different between our environment and out in the public is that we do have the symptom screening requirements for return to work. So that's sort of a fourth thing that makes this different and part of that risk assessment. So combining that with the fact that these shields would also require regular cleaning to maintain their effectiveness and not become a potential avenue of transmission from that touched mucous membrane avenue, we're not currently recommending installation of plexiglass shields anywhere right now.
Thanks, Matt. That's helpful to know as well. So going off of something you said about, obviously one of the threes is a social distancing, physical distancing. Going back to you, John, tell us more about how facilities is supporting distancing space layouts. To me, this is really fascinating, especially, I mean, I think there's roughly 320 buildings on campus. It's a lot of space. So how is facilities supporting distancing space layouts in buildings and facilities, for example, through the use of signage, traffic patterns, et cetera?
Sure. So the first thing is that each school and each department is responsible to designate how they decide to use the space within the building. So for example, their classrooms, whether they will be open, not open, their break rooms, whether they will be open or not open. So we would certainly follow the lead and the desire of the department. We have stood up a planning group that can help departments and schools do this kind of planning. It's made up of our planners, our CAD, GIS staff, as well as a couple project managers. And what they will do, if a department needs help in doing this, they can develop diagrams, CAD diagrams, for example, showing a break room and the proper distancing within the break room. That then leads to how many people can be in that break room, as an example, whether they're sitting or even just passing by each other to go to the coffee machine or the sink. So we've already worked with several schools. We've done a lot of classroom work, working with the provost, setting up, whether it's a tiered classroom, a tablet arm classroom. I wouldn't quite call them standards because, as you mentioned, we have so much space and all of it is very different one room to the next. But that is the service that is available to the customers at this point in time. Secondly, I'd say you mentioned signs. So Paul Grantham and his team have a whole sign package that's available to the return to work coordinators. So as we do the calculations within, say, a break room or a classroom, then that sign, the proper sign, could then be posted on that door with the occupancy requirement.
That's really helpful, John. Just a quick follow-up on that. Obviously, things are very fluid, so we're just talking today and things could change. But can you offer our viewers an example of you know, the 6-foot distancing in a workspace or something, what would that look like to help viewers understand or visualize something like that?
So it would be actually, if you think of a person with a 3-foot radius, it comes out to, I think, about 30 square feet. So if you have 2 people walking by each other, to be 6 feet apart. So on average, the person needs sort of a bubble around them of about 30 square feet. But this can change when you're in a classroom, for example. If the seat's up against the wall, it doesn't quite work that way, or major hallways, et cetera. So what we do is we have to look at each room individually, and it has to start really with the size of the room, the square footage of the room, but more importantly, the furniture layout. So that is potentially one area that we don't necessarily have all the furniture layouts in our CAD system per se, but we can go out and measure, take photographs. So they would get a diagram that would literally show them pictorially or visually how many people can be in that room, literally with a dot and a circle around representing an individual.
Wow, that's going to be a very helpful service to the schools, departments, and units and areas, I'm sure. Matt, coming back to you. So we've addressed the ventilation systems. So let's consider restroom facilities. I'm sure it's another question on folks' minds. Is there a greater risk of transmission of the virus in these spaces due to flushing of toilets or et cetera? Whatever you can sort of say on this area would be helpful.
Sure. So that's a really common question that we've received over the last 3+ months. And the current scientific literature as it exists right now suggests that you can find the genetic material associated with the virus in close proximity to the toilet, but there's little evidence that has shown that that genetic material is both viable, meaning that it's alive, and infectious at a level that would be an infectious dose. So the recommendations for the bathroom right now, most important aspects of preventing that infection in the bathroom environment are to continue to wash your hands, to avoid touching your face, and also maintaining the social distancing while in the bathroom. So as part of some of the stuff, work that we've done with John and his team is to also have an increased screening schedule or frequency within those bathroom environments, as well as having the number of people that would typically be in that bathroom environment decrease so that we can ensure that appropriate social distancing metric.
Thanks, Matt. So John, in closing, as schools, departments, and units consider social distancing, what other changes do you think might be necessary in planning and designing campus workspaces that bring us together while also keeping us apart? And what role will facilities play in this arrangement?
That's a tough question there. So I'd first start by saying, none of us have ever seen anything like this before, right? So normally when we think of emergency planning, at least in the facilities world, it's usually something that we've seen before: a power outage, a hurricane, those types of things where we have some sense of what we could do for preparation or business continuity afterwards. This situation is obviously very different, and I personally don't have any experience with it, nor do many others. So I think, in answer to your question, I think we in facilities and probably lots of other departments are really going to have to follow advances that come from the medical world and the scientists and probably technology at a significant level as well. All the things that we've just talked about with Matthew and myself here, really I would view those as short-term measures and changes and improvements, so that we could, as we learn what's going on with this virus, then we'll be able to probably make some more permanent decisions. But at the end of the day, I think we would follow the medical world on their advice of whether distancing is around for the rest of the time, or wearing a mask is around for the rest of the time, or not. And then we likewise would follow, Duke University in which direction they want to go. So we are a support organization, and that's what we would do, continue to do, try to stay flexible, hopefully creative, to support the mission of Duke.
Thanks, John. I just want to thank you both for all that you're doing to keep us safe and healthy at Duke. And to our viewers, please follow us on Twitter as well as Facebook, Working at Duke, and also online at working.duke.edu. Thanks for joining us today.
Produced by the Office of Communication Services, online at today.duke.edu/working.